The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon, everyone. I just want to check and see if everyone can hear me or not. So there's a question section underneath the or out on the webinar site. If I could get someone or anyone to type that yes, they can hear me, that would be wonderful. Yay, perfect. Okay, this is Lisa Smith, and welcome to the Introductory Dynamics CRM 2011 Overview Call. We're going to be having a webinar this afternoon, and just a couple of housekeeping items. Everyone is in listen only, and if you do have questions during the call, you can type those in the question section, which some people have already found that told me they can hear me, so that's a good thing. I want to let everyone know our presenter today is Tammy Johnson, who's based out of sunny California, and Tammy's going to be going over, like I said, Dynamics 11. Tammy, I'll hand it over to you.
Great. Thanks, Lisa. And it's actually morning here, so I'm going to say good morning, everyone. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And hopefully you can see the agenda that I have on the screen here. I just want to walk you through real briefly what we're going to be covering today. The first thing we're going to do is start with some definitions, make sure that as we are going through our presentation today. And then we're going to look at how Dynamics CRM lives inside of Outlook. And we'll take a look at some dashboards, some real nice ways to get at your information. And then we'll talk about the different record types, leads, accounts, and contacts. We'll also talk about managing a sales process with opportunities. We'll look at some service cases and also some marketing campaigns. So let's start here just with some definitions. And in Dynamics CRM, a lead is a potential customer who's not been qualified by your sales process. So if you buy a list, typically the names on that list would come in application that your organization does business with. Notice that it doesn't necessarily say that there might be other types of accounts other than just customers. A contact is typically someone, an individual related to an account. They don't always have to be related to an account, but generally speaking, they're related to an account. You'll hear me talk about, and we'll see examples of different kinds of activities today. So tasks and phone calls and emails and appointments. Those are all relating to those accounts, contacts, leads, opportunities, cases. So those are the interactions that we have with those that we do business with. Now, an opportunity is a potential sale, and typically it's to an account. A case is a customer service issue or problem that's reported by a customer. And then a service activity might relate to a case. It's the type of work that we perform for a customer, and it can be performed by one or more resources. And finally, the last thing on the list here is workflow. And that's just the automation of a business process. And so Dynamics CRM does give us the ability to not only enter and record the information about our customers or those that we do business with, it also allows us to create business processes and automate those processes as the records are moving through CRM. So with that, we're just going to jump in here and start our overview here. Now notice that I'm in Outlook. And I have my Outlook reading pane active. I'm looking at some emails here. and I can see by this is a CRM record. I can also tell because this says untrack. If it wasn't a CRM record, it would say track. The icon is different from the normal icon that we would expect to see in an email. So lots of different ways to me that this relates to CRM. You can easily access that contact record just by clicking the link in the email message, and this is right to Chris's contact record. And there it is. My preferences in CRM to look at email address for a particular email that comes in and look back into CRM, and if that email address exists in CRM, the only you're dealing with when you're going through, pouring through your email every day is new opportunities that arise for you, new leads, new customers, and so it's going to relate the existing customers automatically. So you saw a little CRM area here in across the top of Outlook, additional menu here, and really what I think is significant as well. So if you're getting on a plane, you can continue to work. So that's one way you can take CRM on the road. There's also Crm Mobile Express, which is a browser-based, provides browser-based access to Dynamics CRM. And very soon we're going to see actual real-life apps, system-specific, so Apple iOS devices, Blackberries, Androids. Those are going to be available as well in the very, very near future, as well as multiple browser support, so Safari, Firefox, and Explorer. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to roll out of my email here and roll down into the CRM area. And incidentally, I want to let me backtrack for just a second. We can see how we can track emails in CRM. We can also track other records as well. So if we look at, for example, an appointment, there's a track option here that would allow me to track this to an account, a lead, an opportunity, a contact, a case in CRM. As well, I can track tasks. And so we're going to see how activities can be automatically set up using workflow, but if I set them up manually, I can still make that association in CRM. All right, let's look at what's new. What's new takes me to my CRM activity feed. And what this allows me to see is everything that's happening with the words that I follow. So think of this as like your Facebook wall or your tweet, but it's for the things happening inside of your, and there's a large opportunity that you want to follow. You could actually follow that, and when you access your activity feed under My Work, you would be able to see everything that's happening with that particular opportunity. You can also, I'm just going to roll down here a little bit. You can also comment on different, the different feeds that are coming through. So it really is a way for you to collaborate and kind of keep up on what's happening. Let's go to dashboards here. So here is my dashboard. There are a number of dashboards that system level dashboards that are just out of the box. There's the CRM Overview Dashboards. And as the user and with the appropriate security permissions, you can create your own dashboards as well. And these are real handy for getting that information that you're looking for. So I can do things like, if I'm looking at my sales pipeline here and all of my different pipeline phases, which incidentally are unique to me, yours might be different, I can pick any of these pipeline phases. Maybe I have got 865,000 in my close phase. Maybe I want to pay some attention to that. So I can click on that, and now it's going to allow me to render a new chart here. Maybe I want to see it by estimated close date. And so I can get a nice little bar chart here that shows me what revenue is expected by estimated close date. If I want to do some more detailed analysis, I can view the records that are used to generate the chart just by clicking this little icon. And this is going to take me out and get to another view of that chart with my all of my opportunities listed. And so I can, instead of having to drill into another chart, I can just click on that particular section of the chart, in this case the closing section, the pipeline phase 4 close, and I can see all of my opportunities that I have sitting out there for that particular phase. And here's a big one. Here's where most of that is coming from. It's a $600,000 opportunity for a store for 5,000 headsets. So maybe I want to drill into this. This is supposed to close next week. Maybe I should drill into this, and we're going to. This is actually an Outlook reminder that popped up, and it's relating to a CRM activity. So I'm going to close that. We're going to come back to that in a minute. You can see I'm able to drill into this now and get more information, maybe push to close more. So that's how the when you're looking at an individual dashboard, because you can apply whatever information you want to apply to a dashboard, it really becomes a launching point for doing your job. And so what you can do, here I've got activities by type and priority. When I come in the morning, I can just take this out into a list, and I can look at all of the high priority, for example, all of the high priority phone calls that I need to make. And here they are. I can make, and then I can decide, you know, which ones I want to make. I can complete them and then move on to maybe the low or less high priority items in my list. There's a real everyday operational way that that we can use these dashboards. All right, I'm going to move on to leads. And we're going to do a couple of things here in leads. The first thing I want to talk about is how you can change the way that you view information in Dynamics CRM. So what I've got here is a view called My Open Leads, and these are all of the leads that are assigned to me. And if I click over here, I can see there are lots of system leads, system views that I have, and then there's some personal views as well. To make a change to these views, I can drag columns off. This is just normal Outlook stuff. If you've done any sort of configuration or customization to the way that your email list appears, it's the same sort of process. It's just Outlook. And if I want, I can add a new field. I'm going to add a new column, same way as I would if I was using, if I was doing this to my email. So I can add the city there. Maybe I want to do a filter now, and I want to see all of my San Francisco leads. So I can say I want to see where the city equals San Francisco. All 4 of those leads. And now I can save Miami's list. And now what it's done is it's isolated that view out for me now. So I can have multiple views open at the same time. So if I'm managing multiple types of records, I can filter them and have them in a view. If I'm managing multiple people, I can have their records across, you know, Tammy's leads, Lisa's leads, et cetera, across the top here. And what else, the other thing that's nice is that when I save this, it actually saved it to my list here. So you can see, here's Tammy's list now. So when I come in to look at my information, I can just pick Tammy's list from my list there. So it makes it real easy to be able to access information. All right. So Lisa, do we have any questions so far?
There are no questions at this time.
Okay.
Again, if you do want to ask a question, you can type it under the question section, and then I'll let Tammy know that there's a question, and we'll get those answered for you.
All right. I'm just going to keep going then. So what we're going to do here is we're going to open this first lead on my list here for George Jetson. Now, this could have been imported. It could have been, so if you go to a trade show, for example, and you come back with a big pile of business cards and you want to run it through your card reader and then import it in as a text file, you can do that. You can set up a data map and save it, so the next time you go to a trade show and run those business cards through the reader, all you have to do is just import the file. So it's something that you set up once for each data structure that you're going to be importing. I actually just manually entered this lead in. You can see we're required to have a little asterisk, and then the recommended fields have a plus. Keep in mind, I can add fields, I can remove fields, and I can change the way this form looks. And I can actually assign different forms to different individuals. So marketing may want to see a different form than the salespeople would want to see, for example. So for this particular lead, it's for George Jetson of Spacely Space Sprockets. I'm just going to click down here on the details. And you can see that I assigned a lead source of web to this. And when I did that and saved it, it actually did an activity for me. And that activity is a phone call. So this is because I have workflow configured in my scenario here. I have it configured that when I get a web lead, I need to do an introductory phone call. So I can have different versions of the same record go through different processes based on the choices I make when I complete that record. So in this case, it's a web lead, so I have to make an introductory phone call. Notice that it's due on 4/19, and I got this Outlook reminder here. I got a couple of them going here. So here's an introductory call that I need to make to George. It's the same thing here, but it's coming through Outlook to remind me that I need to make the call. And here it's telling me it's regarding the lead, George Jetson. And I can click on this and open the lead. I can mark it complete. I can take notes. I can do all the things that I'm going to show you here. Right here, I can attach a file. Anything that I would want to do So really, you can do all of your work through Outlook. So what I'm going to do here, we'll open this up, and I'll show you that you can take notes. And they'll date and timestamp the notes. And so you can see the date and time and who did the note as well. And the goal here is to be able to talk with George and mark it complete. So I completed this task. And so you can see it's been removed from my list here. I'm just going to go to closed activities. And you can see it's here. It's just a historical record now, as opposed to something that I need to do. Also notice here that there was an email that was sent. You can see the little envelope here for an email. A new lead has been assigned to you. So when I created this new lead, it automatically, as part of my workflow, sent an email to the owner of that lead. And that's just part of the workflow that I configured. Now we're going to come back up here to activities again. And you'll see now we've got a follow-up call that's due in 7 days, due in a week. And so you can assign due dates to these. Now remember, when I was looking at my activities, I can filter those by due date, and I can see what I need to do today. I can see what I need to do in the next 7 days, whatever time frame I want. And so this is going to help me not only drive my and standardize my processes, but it's going to help me to know what I need to do instead of having to remember what I need to do. I know because CRM has been configured. So the goal here with a lead would be to qualify that lead. And when we qualify that lead, I'm just going to click this button here, it means that it's been qualified as by our process as being ready to move to the next phase. So we know a little bit more about this. This is definitely someone that we want to do business with. And so I definitely want to set up Spacely Space Sprockets as an account. And I'm just going to move this over here. And I want to set George up as a contact. Now, if I knew at this point that I had an actual sale, that I actually have a sale that I'm recognizing as an opportunity here, I could set the opportunity up here as well. So I could define that at this point and set it up automatically. Keep in mind that you can disqualify it as well. And if you're measuring what you disqualify and why you disqualify it, then you can report that. If you're capturing the information, you can report it back and obviously know more about what's happening in your business. You know, which salesperson is qualifying the most leads, which region is qualifying the most leads, which marketing campaign is qualifying the most leads. So you can really capture a lot of information and get at that information real easily. So I'm just going to go ahead and set up an account and a contact for George Jetson and Spacely Space Sprockets. If at some point I decide, you know what, this really needs to go back into the lead bucket, it's not really an account at this point, I can reactivate the lead. But for my purposes today, this lead is qualified and it's closed. So we're gonna dismiss all of these for now. So let's move on and talk about accounts.
Hey, Tammy.
Yeah.
We do have a question before you move on.
Sure.
The question is, what versions of Outlook are compatible with CRM 2011? Do you know that?
I'm in 2007, 2010, and I believe 2003 is what obviously Outlook are going to be able to access that version is capable of. So in 2003, you don't have a ribbon, so you're not going to see a ribbon. All right. So first of all, let's find our Spacely Space. So I just typed space there in my filter, and so you can see that that account does exist. One thing I want to point out here, we're going to look at a different account, but one thing that I want to point out for Spacely Space Sprockets is in our activities. Remember, we didn't complete our follow-up call. So it's still here from our lead. So I still technically need to complete that follow-up call to complete the process. Now there's also been another call that's been defined as a part of creating a new account. Also be aware that those closed activities, the history of this account from back when it was a lead follows it as well. So you're not going to ever lose visibility of anything relating to a customer. So let's do this. I know that a store has a whole bunch of activity on it, so I'm going to use that as my example today. And what I've got here is I've got a different view of my CRM information. So the out-of-the-box form for an account, we're just collecting basic information, and we're able to see contacts and activities and things relating to the account. But what I prefer to do is use this quick view. And this again is something that I was able to configure. It's something that is not a development activity. If it was, I couldn't do it. But I did this because I wanted to see all of my activities at the top. So these are all the things that I need to do for this account. I've also got some analytics information. So I can see the open opportunities. Here's that 600,000 opportunity that we saw before. And I'm also tracking my sales history by year. And this is actually an ERP integration opportunity. So you could pull your actuals, your invoices, basically in from your ERP application. And then I'm collecting, name, address, all that kind of information about the customer. I want to come over here to the activities in the common area here, and we're just going to click on that. And you'll see there's 15 activities for this particular account that need to be completed. And you'll see that they're not just for a store. There are actually some here for Arnold's Fund as well, and I can isolate, a store only, or I can see across all of the sub-accounts for this particular account. So a store is an account. Arnold's Fund is an account, and Bennett Valley Global Ag is an account. But these two accounts are sub-accounts of a store, and so that's how I'm able to see the information for them in a store. So you can also maintain relationships, and so these might be, you might have a contact who's a referral source for you, and you could record that. The role might be referral, so you could measure that. You could see who's giving you the most referrals. In my example here, A store is the property owner and Peppermint Mining Company is the landscape contractor. So they're unrelated entities, but they do have a relationship with one another, and so I can maintain that relationship here. So I'm going to move to opportunities. And you can see I've got a number of opportunities here for a store. We have one for 5,000 headsets, and that's the one that we've looked at a couple times and referenced a couple of times. In this case, this particular opportunity, the value of this opportunity, I'm going to roll out to the forecast information, is actually system calculated, and it's as a result of the line items that have been included in this particular opportunity. You could also say this is user provided and just type a number in there. But if you use line items, you can see you can keep track of all of the different products or services that you are recording against this particular opportunity. So in this case, I'm getting 5,000 headsets at $120 a piece at $600,000. And then here's a conference call two of those conference call 2 phones for $110. And then here's just a write-in product at $55. And that's where my forecast revenue, my estimated revenue, comes from for this particular opportunity. I can record my estimated close date. You could even use workflow to move that along. Probability percent, you could use workflow to update. You could say, maybe it's 80% and it's hot. And again, you can use workflow. So you could have a task that says, when you activate a quote for this opportunity, which in CRM language means I sent it to the customer, when I activate a quote, move it to 80%, change it to hot, and change the pipeline phase to close. I can see all the quotes that I've generated for this opportunity, and generating a quote for an opportunity is really easy. You just choose to add a new quote, and it will take all of the line items that exist for that particular opportunity and add it to the quote. So I can see the products. They're the exact same products that were on my opportunity record. I can see any activities that might come through on this particular quote. I can print the quote for the customer, and then I can activate it. If I activate the quote and need to make a change to it, I can revise it. So it's going to keep track of revisions for me, and I can see the history of that quote. You notice that there's an option here to create an order. So I have to activate it before I can create the order, but I can talk about it for you. So to create an order, it's the same process. I could come in here and pick the right revision of the quote that the customer accepts and create an order. If I'm using an ERP and integrating with my ERP application, maybe that order goes back to the back office to ERP to be fulfilled, because that's where your order fulfillment is typically going to happen. Once it's been fulfilled, maybe the ERP solution then sends back an invoice. And so that's where I can track my actual sale of this particular opportunity. Obviously, the goal, we want to close it as one. And then I can start measuring my sales, my wins and losses, and track them through a sales process. So those are opportunities. Keep in mind, as we're going through these different record types, I have them isolated for a particular account. I'm just going to minimize this for just a second. I can also access them as a whole, so all of my opportunities out here in the sales area. And the same thing is true for cases. And so if we move down, just move down here, we can see cases, which are customer service issues that have been generated for a store. And so maybe maybe we've got a case here for, let's look at this one. The phone isn't working. It makes a noise. Well, what are we going to do about it? One thing that we can do is we can take them through a process of how they might resolve this. I can use the knowledge base. Maybe I want them to return it, or maybe I have a knowledge base for a knowledge base article for troubleshooting this particular kind of phone, or maybe I want them to go ahead and return it. Did I not pick that? Probably not. Let's try that again. There we go. So let's pick that. And I can add it here now. I can look at the article. I can add comments if I want. I can email this actually to the customer from the case. It will stay associated with the case if I do that. So I can see that I sent them an email on how to resolve it. If they call back and say, you know what, I need some more help here, I could actually define a service activity for this particular case. I don't know if I have one here or not. Let's see. Yeah, let's look at this. So here's a service activity that's already been defined. And the start time is 4:17, 8:30 to 9:30 in the morning. Where this is going to end up is this is going to end up in a service calendar. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come out here into my service area, and we're just going to bring up the service calendar so that you can see what it looks like. So typically, if you're running a service organization, you'd have more than one user, first of all. This is my demo system. I only have one user. And so you might have someone who's working as a dispatcher or a scheduler that can look at everyone's calendar. And you can do things like look at conflicts. And you can see it's got a red and highlight around conflicts. And so I can go ahead and look at those. Here's what I'm doing right now. This is the webinar. And I actually have another service activity that's been scheduled that is a conflict. So let's open that. And you can see it's pretty clear I'm not available at this time. And so I can reschedule it if I want. I can come out here and say, you know what, we're going to do it at noon my time. And then save and close. Can't remember if I'm available at that time or not. And so it will move that. Now keep in mind that it's moving it not only here, but in my Outlook calendar. So this will show up in my Outlook calendar as well. There are dashboards for service as well, and so you're able to get a pretty clear view of what's happening within your service organization. How many cases have been completed, how fast they're being completed by individual, by region, by tech, by whatever data you want to collect. All right, I'm going to pause for just a second and see if we have any questions. Lisa?
We do. It's a three-part question. So
okay.
The part is, does CRM relate to Dynamics GP?
Yes, it does. There is actually an out-of-the-box connector with Dynamics GP. So the entities or the record types that would integrate would be customers to accounts, customer addresses to account addresses, products, so your items in GP become products in CRM, so you can choose them both on service activities and also in your sales process. Salespeople, of course, come through. See, customers, customer addresses, salespeople, orders. There we go. I knew there were 6, and I couldn't remember what the other 2. Orders. So orders from CRM become orders in Dynamics GP, and invoices in Dynamics GP become invoices in Dynamics CRM. So hopefully that answered that question.
Okay, and then the second part is, do they share the same database?
No, they do not share the same database. There's a synchronization process that happens. It's not the same database.
And then the third part is, which versions of GP does Dynamics CRM work with? And I assume they mean 2011 work with.
Yeah, it will go, I believe, GP, so the supported versions, which are GP10 and GP 2010.
Correct.
So those are the 2 versions of Dynamics GP that are supported today.
And it looks like that's all the questions we have right now.
Okay. So the last area that I'm going to cover here in our overview is marketing. And there's a pretty powerful marketing engine built right into Dynamics CRM. And you can see I have several campaigns here. We're just going to look at this last one. Product launch campaign. An example of a campaign might be a trade show. So you could go to a trade show, set it up as a campaign, collect those business cards, bring them in as leads, associate them with the trade show campaign, and as those customers or leads move along in the process and become accounts, you could actually track your lead conversion rate for that particular trade show. Because you're collecting the information, you can measure it and you can report on it. In my example here, I've got a product launch campaign. And just basic information that I'm collecting. What's my expected response rate so that I can measure it against my actual response rate. When this is supposed to begin and when it actually begins. When it actually ends. There's a financial component that allows you to create a budget for the campaign. and then measure the actuals based on the campaign activities that you create. And so in this case, I've got some brochures that I need to have made, and I can record a vendor if I want to on that. But here's the actual cost. And so this is the cost that I've recorded of this particular activity, and that's where that $875 is coming from. So it's coming from the campaign activity. I can record campaign responses, and this is important because you want to know who's responding and what their responses are. And so you can have, you can collect any information you want, remember, because we can add any sort of field that we want to this. We can have the response code. We can how did this come in? Did it come in over the phone? Did they send an email? Did I meet with them? How did this come in? I could convert, someone could call in, and I could start the activity as a phone call, and then halfway through realize that this is probably a campaign response, and I can just convert it right then and there. While I'm still talking to them, they don't even know. And so it would show the originating phone call activity as well. So really good ways to gather the information that you need to gather to measure the value and the return on a particular campaign. So I can also have specific products associated with a campaign. As well, I can have marketing lists. And so on each of the records, the account, the contact, and the opportunity, I can assign each of those to one or many marketing lists. Dynamics CRM has two kinds of marketing lists. There's a static marketing list, and that's just where I'm setting up a new customer, and I say I want to put them on these 3 marketing lists, and I check the boxes, and they're on those marketing lists. That's a static marketing list. There's also a dynamic marketing list, and it's based on a query or a filter of information. So, for example, you might have a marketing list for web leads, and if I look at this list, it's based on a query. So if I look at Manage Members here, it's going to say, if the lead source is web, add them to this marketing list. And if the status is open, add them to this marketing list. And so all of these marketing list members have a lead source of web. And they were automatically added to the list. So you might occasionally need to use a static marketing list, but if you're collecting the information properly, you would never need to use a static list because your dynamic list will be capturing that information for you. So the goal of marketing is to generate business, and the way that we can monitor that is using this campaign performance report. This is a pretty comprehensive report. It's just an out-of-the-box report, and it tells me everything about the campaign. I'm just going to move it up here. So I can see the name and the time frame and all the marketing lists and the products. Keep in mind I can drill in on any of these. So here's my brochure activity. So I can just click on that. We saw this before, where I can measure my budget and actual, so I can look at all of the information. Here's my campaign responses. 5 are interested, 1 is not. Here's the response channel. Phone seems to be the most common one. And finally, I mean, this is really what matters here, is measuring the return, and that's the value of placed orders. That's really when we have an order, that's what's going to calculate this ROI. I don't have any orders, but I have some good estimated opportunity revenue. So I have generated some good opportunities from this particular campaign. And so hopefully I'll be able to get some placed orders here too as well. But again, I can drill in on this and look at the details of those opportunities. Looks like most of it's from this one opportunity here, so I might want to drill into that a little further and look at more information. And so that's the marketing component of Dynamics CRM. So we looked at sales, we looked at customers and leads and contacts and opportunities. In our service area, we looked at cases and then service activities and scheduling those service activities so we could get technicians out to resolve issues for our customers. And we looked at the marketing component that allows us to set up marketing campaigns and track and measure the results of those campaigns against the sales and activities that are coming through our system. So that concludes the overview. Lisa, are there any other questions?
There are no other questions at this time.
Okay. So I guess that's going to conclude the overview today.
Thanks everyone for attending.